All right, guys, season one, episode 12. We are not going to start the episode how we normally do. It's a little off the norm because today is sort of a day of mourning. I guess I would say globally, economically around the world for sure has been affected by what happened yesterday. And we don't really get into politics on this show, and I really don't want to talk about it. We'll get into the politics eventually. That'll be a fun episode, but not this episode. Um, so obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard by now, but we'll talk about it. Trey Lance was not voted as team captain of the 49ers. And there's been some controversy about it. So, I mean, obviously, his head coach came out, Shanahan came out and said, it's because of his lack of his tenure there. Um, there's some issues with Jimmy G going around. What do you got on it, Pete?
It's just a letter on a jersey. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Yeah, he's in his second year. He's like 22 years old, not being a captain, no big deal.
But he's the starting quarterback. He has to own that locker room,
You
right?
can still do that without the letter.
All right. Well, they -7 against the Bears this weekend. That'll be interesting.
Yeah,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the captains go out for the coin toss, right?
yeah.
Do you think that might be because Trey just might be unlucky?
They maybe run some practice coin tosses in practice, and he's like 3 for 12. I mean, it could be an issue. He's not Tom Brady. He can't win every coin toss in overtime in the playoffs. Only one guy can do that.
Oh, here we go. He is the GOAT, Pete.
The
Speaking of
coin
coin
toss, yes, he's
tosses,
3-0 in his career in the playoffs in the coin toss. That's GOAT status right there. He knows how that
is it
coin's going to land. He sees the rotation. He understands physics. He knows.
Aaron Rodgers has entered the chat. Um, I think Aaron Rodgers really thinks that Aaron Rodgers is a physicist, though. So speaking of coin flip, well, we'll get into Josh Allen soon, but Mister the biggest coin flip of his life didn't go his way. Came out and showed out last night. We'll get to that game, right?
Yeah,
The segment that we're not going to talk about, that we were going to talk about, we're not going to talk about is Elizabeth died. So there's that.
yeah. A lot of people got
Game
sad
of
about that.
yeah. Um, Not in Ireland though. I heard there were some fireworks going on. We're not going to talk about politics.
No.
Let's talk about the game last night, man. Let's underreact or overreact or tell me what happened, man.
Well, we have been talking about Buffalo's roster, 1 to 53, being the best in the league. That's certainly something I believe. And it showed out. And I want to go ahead and emphasize that even though the Rams are the defending Super Bowl champs, you could argue they're not the best team in football and they weren't last year. Let me give it an example. Let's go back in time to 1985 when the Chicago Bears dominated the NFL. If you ran those playoffs out 100 times, the Bears probably win the Super Bowl 90 times. Maybe they get upset here and there, but it would be a huge upset for them to have lost at any point. For those who are too young to remember, they gave up 10 points in those playoffs. Period. Shutout, 10 points in the Super Bowl. They were dominant. Last year's playoffs, you run it back 100 times. How many times did the Rams win the Super Bowl? 15, 20? Does anybody win it 25, 30 times? This is a little bit, every game was a toss up except for a few first round games. So the Rams were in the right side of those toss ups. Congratulations to them. Deserving Super Bowl champions. We're not trying to take it away from them, but they weren't as good as Buffalo. So for Buffalo to come out and beat them 31-10 on their field, um, it's impressive. It's maybe the margin of victory is a little surprising. But on this side, the two of us, we're not surprised they won that game at all. And the Rams did have to go to a silent count at some points during the game. They're at home. So we talked about how the home field advantage didn't mean much because the game was in LA. But the defending Super Bowl champions 14-2 at home on Thursday night. And those numbers didn't mean anything to us because we saw
That
we saw Buffalo's ability. And one game doesn't crown a champion, but they're looking good.
that was an awesome. First of all, I love everything you just said. That was awesome that we brought that stat up and we could bring it up again and show that Numbers don't lie, but sometimes they do.
Yep.
Uh, we did talk about the Bills Mafia showing up and showing out, and even Collinsworth last night was like, people come to LA on vacation. Now here's a guy.
I just felt like I was in a
So
room with Collinsworth right there. Sorry.
I've been practicing. He might, what? Not Tarico. What's the? Oh my gosh, he's doing Thursday night football now. What's his name?
I don't know.
Collinsworth.
Collinsworth
Collinsworth's.
and
Oh,
shit. I don't know.
oh my gosh, that's gonna. It'll come to me
The
for the show. But
commentary
anyways,
means less to me.
he might need a new guy on the Thursday night Amazon broadcast. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, man. He's a legend. Anyways, so yeah, Bills Mafia showed up. Our pick showed up. So
Yep.
I did believe in support minus 2.5. I love that bet. Never crossed my mind to take the Bills money line. I was never scared. A little bit, but never scared. Uh, I love Mike Tirico making the same joke over and over again about how the completion percentage was 1,000% for both quarterbacks in like the first half because somebody caught every ball that they threw, even though 3 of those were interceptions. They were still caught. That was clever. Do you want to talk about how the props turned out, man? Because
Yeah.
I've been on Knox all week, and I was really disappointed in
Yeah,
what happened.
Knox. He saw 2 targets in the whole game, caught 1 pass for 5 yards. I guess he's working his way back in. Yeah, it was a shot. It was a plus 175. Um, it's the Singletary prop that's a little more annoying. So we learned yesterday that James Cook is not Kareem Hunt. And why is that the case? Well, on a Thursday night game a few years back, Kareem Hunt was a rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs playing against the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. And he fumbled his first career carry. Granted, he had never fumbled in college. And in his first carry in the NFL, he fumbled. They all is lost. All he does is come out in the game, combined for 246 total yards, 3 touchdowns, en route to winning a rushing title that year in his rookie year. That could still happen with James Cook, but the first part certainly did not. He carried his first NFL carry was fumbled, and that was it. He exited the game with 1 carry for 2 yards and a lost fumble. If you had him in fantasy, he gave you negative 1.8 points.
Yuck.
As far as
Yuck.
normal scoring goes. So that was just enough for Devin Singletary to clear his rushing total. We had him at under 46.5 or 45.5, and he hit 48 yards. He did go
Brutal.
under on his carries, so we got a split there.
Right.
He made a couple of nice runs. His longest run was 13 yards, but he had a few other. I mean, he averaged 6 yards a carry. That's pretty strong. But he still finished second on his team in rushing attempts and rushing yards to Josh Allen. So yeah, we got the carries by about 4.5, missed the yards by 2.5. Call it a push with a little juice lost.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a gross push. You had the board as far as the props. Um, the board was read perfect. Like you said, if the kid hadn't come out and fumbled, he probably would have gotten those garbage time looks. You go over by a yard and a half, 2 yards, whatever, with Singletary. As far as his, it was a good read, man. I'll call us out for having bad bets, and I've said it before, as bad bets. Knox, I loved it. We might have fell in love with the story, and he'll get his eventually. But it was weird. They just really didn't go to him. You know what I
Yep,
mean? Not
2
even in the
targets.
red zone. Yeah, they just didn't go to him. That might have been the bad bet. But
Well,
the
Gabriel
the
Davis
Bills,
apparently isn't a flash in the pan. He is a legitimate top flight NFL receiver, and you got to feed him the ball. We looked at him last year. I mean, he caught 4 touchdown passes in one game in the playoffs against the Chiefs. And he looks like he's picking up right where he left off. He scored the NFL's first touchdown this season. And
right? Yeah,
Knox is
yeah,
going to get his here and there. That's the thing with some of those touchdown props. They can be random. We had the right idea behind them, but the Bills were scoring from far enough away. 2 longer touchdown passes. Those aren't going to go to the tight end unless you're, like a Rob Gronkowski or George Kittle type. So,
right.
and Knox is
Yeah,
good, but he's
and
not that level.
yeah, we talked about Josh Allen's rushing yards prop, and that hit by
Oh yeah,
I think he might hit 2.5 times, man. I mean,
yeah,
like and we talked about we didn't fire it. It was on the radar. So again, we're reading the board, man. I love where our minds at right now.
yeah. We were on that
Uh,
game. That game was ours.
so
We owned that
yeah,
game.
yeah, man, and it's the week ones, man, are weird. So for us to come out hot like that, man, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
And we did mention in an
Uh,
earlier pod, and the NFL it's a little easier because we know these guys better.
hmm
Even newcomers, we've seen them playing college. Newcomers coming into college, we're not seeing their high school tape. Let's be honest, you know.
Yeah,
In college, when players transfer, we know who they are, but the differences in systems in college are much grander than they are in the NFL. You go to a new offensive system in the NFL, but it's not drastically different. You're not necessarily going from a pro style offense to a triple option, which can
right.
happen in the college ranks. That's not going to happen in the NFL. So it's easier to read week one in the NFL. And we proved
Absolutely, yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And I think the proof will be in the pudding in the future also.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's do this. Let's rip through all the bets we have, and then we'll revisit and just kind of hash out and go into detail on a couple of them. Some of them be obvious, and we'll say it, but let's rip them out real quick, man, because
Rock and
this
roll.
is exciting. Yeah, we're gonna start in MMA real quick. Like I said, I've been putting together a network. This isn't us. Hand up. I'll admit it. This isn't our what word am I looking for? That's not being sharp. This isn't our handicapping. There we go.
Okay.
This isn't our handicapping. That was tough.
Yeah, well,
Um,
English is hard.
I, by the way, Al Michaels is who I was thinking of earlier. I was thinking I need to do my Chris Collins impressions in case Al Michaels needs a co-host later.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is not our handicapping. This is the network of MMA, UFC guys that we put together who have been proven to be right. And we might add some Saturday daily pick. MMA, we got Irene Aldana. She's minus 186. I said she. She's a badass. Kevin Holland. Pete, if you get the chance, look at some tape on Kevin Holland. Not his fights, his press conferences. He is hilarious. He's a
Nice.
funny guy. Minus 205. And Nate Diaz, I think everybody in the world knows who Nate Diaz, right? I mean, you've heard Nate Diaz.
I
You're
know the
not
name.
big UFC. Yeah.
Yep.
He's plus 700. The guy he's facing is minus 1100. Diaz has just been known to wreck some big favorites. So we're just gonna sprinkle the plus 700, man. Put a little quarter unit, half unit, or something on there, just for fun, man. Just because he's a legend.
Sweet.
Right on, right on. So we'll rip through these picks real quick and stop me if you want to. Okay. So we're gonna start with college.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kentucky at Florida, that line's been moving like crazy. We're still on the points. The over in the Vandy weight game, Wake Forest, it was 61.5. It's at 65 now. Texas Tech -3 against Houston. Alabama -10.5 first half at Texas. Michigan first quarter is -13.5 against Hawaii, correct? The
Yeah.
only way this doesn't hit is if they come out and have to punt for some crazy reason.
Yeah. Or possibly if Hawaii wins the toss and milks some clock, but I don't see that happening at all. The punt seems more
Right.
likely.
Yeah, yeah. BYU -3.5 at home against Baylor. Arizona, Mississippi State over 62. Jump into Sunday to the NFL. I like the Jags money line. I think the Jags are gonna be good, man. I can't help it. I can't get over it. Jags +3. Either one's a play. We all of a sudden out of nowhere fell in love with Carolina,
Yeah.
and now I'm all over them. I can't help it, especially with all the trash that Baker Mayfield's been talking. That line opened up at 2.5. It's at 1.5 now. People are leaning towards the Browns. It's a weird one, but I still like Carolina. Colts Houston under 47. We looked at Jonathan Taylor's rushing prop. He could go for 120 or 75 yards. We were hoping it would be lower. It's set at 99.5. We wanted to take the over, but that Texas defense might be kind of strong.
Yeah, if it gets to a point where Indy is blowing them out, someone else is taking those carries in the fourth quarter. So
right. Vikings money line, we're taking Vikings all year. And Vikings Green Bay over 48.5. You want to run through the NFL real quick and just talk about why we like them?
yeah.
Okay, so obviously Vikings I want to be on the Vikings overs early in the season and all season until they prove to me that they're not going to be the offensive powerhouse that we think that they're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings should be good for at least 24 points a game. That's kind of a low end estimate to us. And if the over under is sitting at half of that, and we're taking a low end estimate, then yeah, I mean, the math says we should do it. Um, Early in the season, you're not going to have weather games. Any potential weather games you might have at home, you're playing in a dome in Minnesota. So
Right.
until they get one of those outdoor weather games late in the season, I'm not sure off the top of my head what their schedule looks like. If they're at Chicago or at Green Bay late in the season, well, they're at Green Bay. That game is in Minnesota or it's in Green Bay?
It's in Minnesota.
It's in Minnesota. Okay, so if they're playing Green Bay late in the season, which I think they will,
Yeah.
let's say they play Detroit late in the season, that'll be a benefit. That's also in a dome. Yeah, as long as the weather is not an issue, Vikings overs until proven otherwise.
Right on. And the same theory with, but the exact opposite direction with Houston, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Davis Mills, everybody keeps talking about how he was a high recruit going into college, and he's a good dude, man. He's a smart dude. Lovie Smith taking over. He's a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive guy. Their defense was strong last year. But their offense is improving. They're starting the kid out of Florida. Do you know Peterson? Is that his name? The kid out of
Damian
Florida, running
Pierce.
back one. Pierce.
Damian
Thank you.
Pierce.
It's my team, and you're telling me the running
He's my
back's
running
name.
back in Dynasty. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so Houston's unders. I mean, if it's going to be a running back driven game, that means that the clock's going to keep running, and they're both going to have defenses. I don't think they'll be as prone to kicking as they was last year with Coach Dave. Can't remember his last name.
Cully.
David Coley. Yeah, thank you. I was there. I got there. They're not. I mean, they punted from like the 35 last year. Man, it was crazy. I gotta love the punt, but I still think the unders are the play. Panthers money line. I like a money line more than I like them 1.5. I'd rather just pay the juice. What do you think?
Yeah, if you're gonna 1.5, unless you're sitting there thinking, wow, but what if Carolina wins by a single point? What do I do if that happens? Don't worry
Right,
about it. This is kind of a version of an alternate line. It's just readily available to you sitting there. I mean, if you even want to take Carolina minus a half point or 1.5 points, get a little bit extra juice there too. Again, running the risk of the 1 point game, but Carolina, they don't report any major injuries coming into this game, so we're concerned about Christian McCaffrey's long-term health. We just need him for this one game. There's nobody on Cleveland's defense that can match up with him in the open field.
right,
If they get him out there on screens and flares, unless they're swarming to him, he's going to do his damage. If they're swarming to him, that leaves out guys like Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and even someone like Terrace Marshall to go out there and do some damage on the edges. So I see Carolina's offense moving the ball fairly well. They're going to be focused on stopping Cleveland's run game on defense, which they should be, and let Jacoby Brissett try to beat him. And if he
right,
does, then props to you. Do you want to put your money on Jacoby Brissett? I don't.
right. And this isn't really even considered. I don't believe a hedge to the Carolina team total under that we took preseason because this one was marked as a win
Yeah, I think
on the calendar anyway.
that was our anticipation, and we don't
Yeah,
want to be beholden to ourselves. We can make picks before the season start and be super stubborn and stick with them if we see they're not working, or we can read the room for what it is and see that okay, so we thought so and so wasn't going to be so great, but turns out they might be. So just because I picked them before the season doesn't mean I can't pick them this week.
right, and all the smack that Baker Mayfield been talking, man. If he doesn't come out and just
Yeah,
do damage, man, he's gonna be on my list. Jags money line. You guys know I'm on the Jags. They're getting 3 points. I think they beat the Commanders straight up. We think.
yeah. The both of those teams we have earmarked for improvement this year. The Commanders, part of that's their schedule. Their schedule is considered to be very easy, but baked into that easiness is the idea that Jacksonville's not going to be good. So I think this is a trickier part of their schedule than prognosticators are giving them credit for. This could be very much a toss-up game, but new head coach, new quarterback. Even though it's the same dude, I'm going to say new quarterback based on what happened last year. Um, they got a better defense than people think. It's not like Washington's offense is very explosive.
Right.
This could be one of the more entertaining, lower scoring games of the year. 20-17 type win for Jacksonville sounds right.
I love it. I love it as long as it says Jacksonville. Honorable mention the Miami Dolphins. I feel like I'm clouded by bias with this team. I just love them so much. Um, eh, Patriots traveling to Miami. It'll be a weird game. I tried to talk Pete into it. He didn't buy it. And then he tried to talk me back into it, and I'm already off the horse. You had mentioned that the Patriots traditionally travel to Miami and do not do well.
They don't.
I love McDaniel's interview where he said, "Could there be any more of an uneven record of his 0-0-0 against Belichick's
Oh,
a million
million,
and 10 or whatever?"
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, it's insane. But he'll come out hot. And they'll do well, man. But I don't. I want to bet the Dolphins, but we're not going to. Honorable mention though.
Yeah, honorable mention. If you are intent on betting that game and you want to hear something from us, what Josh just mentioned about New England historically having trouble in Miami, just go back and look at the history, man. Even just a few years ago with the Rob Gronkowski Hail Mary situation where he's playing defensive back in the Hail Mary situation, everyone right by him. Miami seems to have, even when the Patriots were winning Super Bowls, going to Miami invariably, at least if it didn't turn into an L, it certainly wasn't a cover. So this time Miami's actually the slight favorite. But yep, if you're intent on doing that and you want at least nominal advice out of us, take that for what it is.
Right on, right on. Back to Saturday. We're gonna take a step back, travel back in time. Obviously, we're on Kentucky. We already talked about why. The over in the Vandy Wake game. Sam Hartman had a blood clot, but he is cleared to come back for Wake. They put up a million points without him. We had a read on Vandy. Everybody has a read on Vandy. Preseason turns out their quarterback's pretty good. He's a little mobile. They're going to get blown out. They're not going to win this game. Their defense is still bad. You said that Sisters of the Mary of Klein or something, I don't know, some team that they just played put a lot of points on them, and they were really bad. But we think there's going to be points scored, right?
Oh, there's
Especially
going
with
to be
Sam Hartman
points.
coming back. Yeah,
We see Vanderbilt hitting the 20s for sure, as far as their own team total goes. So let's say they get up to 28 and they lose by at least a couple touchdowns as we anticipate. That's 70 right there.
right.
And the idea that Wake Forest could score over 50 points in this game is very viable.
Absolutely.
It moved
Especially with
up.
Hartman coming back.
Yeah, I mean the line moved up. I'm not worried about it. 70 seems comfortable, and that would give us the win right there. And by saying 70 is comfortable, we think it can go higher. So I mean,
Right.
we just
Absolutely.
saw North Carolina, Appalachian State go for 124 points, and they play in the same state as Wake Forest does. So there's your correlation. In all
There it
seriousness,
is.
though, Wake's going to score. Vanderbilt's going to get theirs at certain points in the game, maybe everybody later in the game. There's not going to be a whole lot of defense in this game.
Right. Agreed. Texas Tech -3 against Houston. This is one of those I looked at the board and I feel like I'm just betting the opposite of the public. You see that Houston's ranked, Tech isn't. That was correct at the beginning of the week. I'm not sure if that's changed, but typically the public will look at that and see the unranked team being the favorite and think, oh well, I'll just bet the ranked team. I just feel like Tech has got Houston's number on this one, man. Like you had said, they had a lot of hype preseason, and we investigated preseason, but they haven't put the proof in the pudding yet, right?
Well, a lot of the hype came from us.
Right.
I would tell everybody, don't worry about rankings. Rankings are kind of, well, at the beginning of the season, they're mostly guesses from media people. They have a week to look at now. There's just the opinions of a select group of sports writers. And when I say select, I don't mean they're anything special. It's just they were chosen.
Right.
So know your teams more than you know your rankings. I'm not sure who's ranked where, and that's on purpose. I don't follow those rankings. They don't mean anything to me. I don't want to be uh, swayed by them. So
Smart.
yeah, we do have the hype on Houston, and in our college football preview, we did take their season wins over with the chance that they can go undefeated. They could lose this game and still hit that over for sure. So this isn't
Yeah,
us. This isn't us backing off of that. But Texas Tech and Houston are about to become conference rivals, so I think there's a stake in it for Tech more than people may realize. So it's a small spread. So you're just basically trying to figure out who's going to win that game. And after Houston's week one stumble, we can see that stumble continuing before they right the ship.
right. Right. Alabama minus 10.5 first half against Texas. This line might have moved in the last 10 seconds since
Yeah.
we've said it, man, because it's just climbing. Obviously, for the past 2 years, we've been on Alabama first half spread. Something about them pulling the reins in the fourth quarter just kind of bites us every time. But Texas is back, not all the way back. Hopefully, that quarterback got. Oh, he did get his car back, but
Nice.
yeah, shout out. Yeah, Alabama first half minus 10.5. That's auto bet until proven otherwise.
Exactly. No matter who they're
Um,
playing.
right. So back to the Vandy Hawaii game. We've seen that Hawaii is not good. We talked about Michigan. Look for the first half line. I couldn't find a posted that I did see the minus 13.5 first quarter. And for Michigan to come out and be up 14-0, 21-0, 24-3, any of those scenarios would not shock me. And covering 13.5, I mean, they would literally have to go down, trip over their own feet, fumble the ball out of bounds, and kick 3 field goals to not cover this first quarter
Yeah.
line, I think.
Yeah, the field goal, I think we talked about how the punt being a problem. I think that's more likely than a field goal. I think if they're moving the ball, they're going to move the ball and it's going to go all the way into the end zone. Very easily see this game being 14-0 in the first quarter, and we'll take that half-point shave in victory. I mean, that could easily still
Right.
be even 21-0. The fact that we believe it can be 21-0 gives us the spark that we need to take that 13.5.
Right. BYU minus 3.5 at home against Baylor. Um, we've had some Baylor conversation on this podcast, haven't we?
Yeah. Yeah, Baylor
Uh,
is one of those teams that surprised last year that could take a step back this year. When we were looking at their over/under win total before the season, we looked at this game as a potential loss, and we haven't seen enough to dissuade us from that decision at this point. They're good. Don't get us wrong; they are good. But BYU, we talked about how the 12-team playoff might affect certain teams. BYU is another one of those teams as a current college football independent. I understand they're going into the Big 12, but um, they can prove themselves as a big time school winning this game. So the fact that they have the offense, they have the horses to do it. Baylor has to travel. That BYU crowd's something. I mean, they'll talk smack to you. They won't talk.
right.
They won't talk anything bad. They'll talk smack. Even smack might be pushing it for that crowd, but that home field advantage is going to mean something. We like Baylor. We like BYU to take that game by a solid touchdown.
Absolutely. And the last but not least, Arizona. It's a big late game. Arizona, Mississippi State over 62. This might be a situation for me also with Mississippi State, Will Rogers being on auto bet until proven otherwise. Arizona can score too.
Arizona can score.
Yeah.
Yeah, 62. That even gives us a field goal leeway as compared to the Vandy Wake game. And we can see this game getting up there in points as well, easily getting to 70.
Yeah, that line's 10.5. I wouldn't mind leaning Mississippi State. It's not on the card, but definitely like that up.
Yeah, we're more confident in the overall points in this game, the over.
Absolutely. Man, we got those out quick, and
Yeah,
I think we justified our picks pretty quick too, Bubba.
I mean, you can say it quickly and say it just as well. That's
Worked
us,
out.
baby.
It's us. All right. So obviously, talk about real quick topical. Miami Marlins team total took a push for us. We got it at 30 yesterday or 2 days ago. It went off at 3.5. And then yesterday they went crazy. That kind of hurt my feelings. So that's still an auto bet for the daily picks. We can add some picks to the daily picks tonight. We got the Central Florida going against Louisville.
That game is still pending as far as this recording goes. Yes.
Yeah. So we'll have that game going. We'll have some daily picks. Miami team total is still on auto bet, and be mindful of the daily picks. Check us out YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, hashtag Drive Across 65 for weather, man, because weather's the only thing that's going to hedge us out of any of these situations.
Josh is a weather guy. I'm going to ask him to tell us a story about the 2019 season when the 49ers were playing what was then known as the Washington Redskins. Tell us about that game, Josh.
So me and Pete were sitting at the bar at the sports book. So first of all, Indiana had just legalized sports betting, and we were degenerative.
Yeah, a
I
little
mean, we were bad.
bit.
Yeah, we were stay up till 3 a.m. Saturday night, looking at the board, getting up at 7 a.m. to make sure we beat the crowd to get to the sports book because it was so new, and yeah. So it was, lack of better word, tsunami up
Yep.
there in Washington,
Yep.
and we don't. So I'm big on not live betting and not announcing live bets and basing our record off of live bets because it's not fair to the public, to the people who are listening, who are trying to get sides on the games, to have to react as fast as we're putting stuff out, as fast as the line moves. That's why we put games out the day before, or if it's a daily pick, we try to go hours before. But in that situation, uh, it was an insane, couldn't see your hand in front of your face tsunami up in Washington. And I think the total went from, Pete remembers this crazy stuff. I can't do it. It went from like 48 to 37 to 28 in like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like it just kept dropping. They couldn't move the ball. They couldn't see anything. It
Yeah.
was
The big
insane.
problem during the game was the mud. The mud became a
Yeah.
huge issue during the game. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't have their footing. Yeah. It was a wild game. It's impossible to handicap. All you could do was go live bet the under and get rich. The only time, well, we've had some weather games that worked out for us. My biggest bet that I've ever placed was Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts. I believe it was the Colts. It was the Bills. I remember the Bills were paying fans to come to the stadium to shovel, and they got free tickets to the game. There was a blizzard up there, about 4 foot of snow, and I'm not going to say the dollar amount because I don't want anybody to count my pockets. But the players couldn't move. There was too much snow, and weather plays a huge factor, man. And that's what we're going to be looking at as far as the daily picks Saturday and Sunday. Make sure that no weather alters our picks.
And just to put a bow on that story, Josh's instincts kicked in and he ran to the kiosk, came back and showed me his ticket. Again, we're not going to mention the price, but the under at that point was something like 36 and had fallen. The final score of that game was San Francisco 9, Washington 0. One of the easiest covers you're ever going to find. So that was good. That shows you how weather can affect, and Josh is a weather savant.
I knew you wanted me to recite the score and the story and the situation and all that. And you know that your brain works like that and mine doesn't. I remember the bet. I remember it being a tsunami. I remember it being crazy. But if you ask me what the total was or what we bet or anything like that, that's your world, man. You rock that out.
Well, that final score I know because I'm a 49er fan.
Right,
As far as
right.
what the over under was, couldn't remember. It certainly wasn't 9.5, 8.5, which would have been the number it needed to lose. That certainly wasn't it. So
And
live betting under last year there were two Monday night games where that fit into 49ers Rams, Bills Patriots.
Patriots, yeah,
Was able
win
to
game.
live bet both of those for moderate amounts during the game. And that 49er game gave me a scare because they did pick six the Rams pretty quickly. I'm like, oh well, there goes the under. And then the rest of the game was close to the vest. Niners taking the air out of the ball. Rams not able to do much on offense. 31-10 final score. 49ers on that one. Again, I remember the
Ship
score as a
it.
49er fan.
Yeah, I still feel bad for running over that old lady on her walker on the
Yeah,
way to the
well, the
kiosk.
prices you pay.
Yeah, yeah, I gave her a buffet ticket, so but I still feel bad. All right, guys, I think that wraps us up, man. You got anything else, Pete?
Well, the 49ers are 6.5 point favorites. We're not actually taking them as an official pick, but since they're going to win by about 40 to 50 points, and Trey Lance is going to account for 4 touchdowns. Actually, I do believe in that 4 touchdowns bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see him throw 3 and rush for 1. But it's his first game. The Niners are coming off an interesting season, so we are going to fade that. But in my heart, 49ers -6.5.
Yeah, and in my heart, Miami's going to win. I have a bunch of teams this year, man. Jesus Christ. Miami's going to win in my heart, but I'm not going to. I bet that either. That the Colts -9, dropping to -7. That's got me a little shook, man. And I've heard some stories about the Texans might being better than what perceived, but nevertheless, we're just going to roll with the under on that. Go Dolphins, fins up. Go Niners. What's your odds? I know Finn's up for the Dolphins. What's Niners? It's
Um,
the this
yeah,
one's for the Bay or something.
it's faithful to the Bay is the latest
Faithful
hashtag.
to the Bay.
Not
Yeah.
crazy about it. Just yeah, let's go Niners.
FTTB baby. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Season 1, episode 12. Wrapping up. Hashtag Drive Across 65. Find us anywhere. Pineapples do not go on pizza. That is still a fact. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.